Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily.
It really feels like the cat with the laser pointer. It's like you've led the cat up to the top of the building, and now you're leading it over the edge.
President Trump is rebalancing trade around the world and making things more fair for the American people.
I think that anytime the deep state can like over-capitalize on whatever situation they have, they're going to.
But the rest of it is a very well-organized and well-funded color revolution operation of the type they run all over the world again and again and again to destabilize entire society.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily. It is Friday. Joined by the one and only Chris Paul. How you doing, brother?
I'm great, man. Great to see you.
Yeah, it's always good to be seen. It's good to be seen. Is this the last Friday in November? No, we got one more, right? Yeah, it's only the 21st.
One more. Yes, but next week, Ash and I are swapping.
Oh.
So I will not be here on the last Friday.
I got to figure out what's going to happen on Thanksgiving. I think I'm going to do a show on Thanksgiving. I think I'm going to do it because nobody else does it. So it's a great opportunity. You know, everybody else takes the day off, and I'm not. We're troopers here at Badlands.
And you're going to be up early anyway. I mean, this is part of your routine, right?
Yeah. I can't sleep past 7 o'clock, no matter how late I'm up. So yeah, it's not happening. So, all right, guys. Well, welcome to the show. Before we get started with today's show, let's go ahead and get a word from our sponsors in here. All right. And speaking of Thanksgiving, cooking Thanksgiving is high stakes. It feels like one dried out turkey can ruin it all, because it can. One dried turkey and the whole day is ruined. And that's why I love ChefIQ Sense, the wireless cooking thermometer that takes the guesswork out of holiday cooking. The USDA says that your turkey has to hit 165 degrees to be safe. Your eyes, they can deceive you, but ChefIQ ensures that you hit that perfect temperature every time, whether you're roasting, grilling, pan-searing, or even smoking the turkey. It's got you covered. It couldn't be easier. Just insert the sensor, tell the app what you're cooking, then sit back and relax. ChefIQ Sense tells you when to flip it, when to take it off the heat, and even how long to let it rest. Basically, it's like having a personal chef watching the stove so you can hang out with your guests. No more oven peaking, no more dried out turkey, just perfectly cooked meals every time. And it works for steaks, chicken, fish, whatever you're cooking. You'll wonder how you ever got by without it. Plus, it's the ultimate gift, perfect for seasoned cooks, kitchen rookies, and everyone in between. And now you can get 30% off site-wide with promo code Badlands at ChefIQ.com. Again, that's ChefIQ.com, promo code Badlands. And this would be an absolutely epic Christmas gift for anybody, the man in your life or woman that likes to barbecue, that likes to grill. They're absolutely fantastic. I love all of the products there. I've got the air fryer as well. It's absolutely fantastic. Yeah. The only problem is my wife keeps insisting on heating pizza up with it and puts it on the top. And I'm like, you got to put it down one. If you put it on the top, it burns the pizza. Yeah, it's like a broil thing. Yeah. It's awesome, though. I mean, the thing is fantastic. And then let's jump into, we'll talk about All Good. Guys, make self-care great again with All Good by Badlands' very own Jessica Storm. This holiday season, treat your hair to the number one best seller, Tallow Hair Mask, deep hydration, zero junk. And while you're shopping, grab the new drops, Tallow Beard Balm, Tamed Hair Serum, and Whipped Tallow in 3 subtle scents that you'll love, all handcrafted in small batches from Clearwater, Florida, and delivered to you in glass jars. So it's all good inside and out. No toxins, parabens, sulfates, BPAs, or PFAs, and no BS. Just simple organic ingredients with purpose. shopping for someone else? Grab some gift cards and let them choose. Head over to badlandsmedia.tv/allgood and use promo code Badlands to snag your discount and support Badlands Media. Again, that's badlandsmedia.tv/allgood, promo code Badlands. And I was talking about this last night on SitRep, but I have the All Good tallow face balm, which came from my wife, but I actually inherited it. I actually stole it. She put it here, when she was doing Alphas Make Sandwiches, she put it in my studio. And so now I'm using it, and holy crap, it's fantastic. It is, dude. Like, I've never been the guy to do like moisturizer and lotions and all that stuff because I live in Florida and we don't really need it.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it's a game changer, dude. Love that stuff.
Yeah, I've never been a lotion person.
Oh, well, I don't know. I guess.
Just saying. But that's awesome. That's great to hear. I could become a lotion person if it was worth it, but I don't think lotion and me are just not they're just not a proper match.
Oh, well, I don't know. All right, let's jump into the news. Kamala Harris is waking up this morning and having a very, very, very bad day, I think. Would you agree she had ambitions to run for California governor?
Well, I would agree that was one of the scripts that has now been revised. There was clearly some Kamala for governor stuff going on even a couple of years ago.
Well, this morning at 1:48 a.m. on a Friday, in the most brilliant political move of all time, perhaps, Eric Swalwell has announced he is running for governor of California. Who does that?
I don't know. I mean, intelligence assets and prop actors who are pretending to be politicians.
I mean, why would you ever announce? First off, like, anybody knows that when you write a story on a Friday, it's going to die. It's going over the weekend. That's where stories go to die. Mm-hmm. And so, like, he did it at 1:48 a.m. when he probably has the lowest engagement, although that actually probably has the highest engagement for him because it's probably like noon or early morning in China where all his Fang fans are all, I don't know. What an idiot. What a dumb move.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about. That we are, especially this week, there's been so much ridiculous stuff. So this is just another ridiculous thing. It'll probably be entertaining if you like that sort of thing.
Let's get into the most ridiculous thing of this week. I'm dying to hear your take on this. Chuck Schumer addressing the Senate floor. He's big mad about Trump calling for due process on people who commit seditious conspiracy and try and coup the U.S. military.
Mr. President.
Democrat leaders recognized.
Earlier today, Donald Trump shared a post on Truth Social calling for Democratic members of Congress to be hanged. He also posted a message that said, seditious behavior, punishable by death. Let's be crystal clear.
That is true.
The President of the United States is calling for the execution of elected officials. This is an outright threat, and it's deadly serious. We have already seen what happens when Donald Trump tells his followers that his political opponents are enemies of the state. Every time Donald Trump posts things like this, he makes political violence more likely. None of us should tolerate this kind of behavior. We all remember what January 6th was like. We lived through January 6th. We've lived through the assassination and attempted assassinations this year. We have members whose families have had to flee their homes. When Donald Trump uses the language of execution and treason, some of his supporters may very well listen. He is lighting a match in a country soaked with political gasoline. Every senator, every representative, every American, regardless of party, should condemn this immediately and without qualification. Because if we don't draw a line here, there is no line left to draw. Who would have thought the President of the United States saying his opponents should be hanged? It's outrageous. No president has ever stooped as low as Donald Trump. None. He has made political violence a feature of his politics. And if we don't draw a line here, There's no line left to draw. And yet today he crossed yet another line that no democracy can afford to tolerate. He must be condemned forcefully, loudly, and without excuses before someone takes his words as permission to do the unthinkable. Anything less enables the flames of hatred to grow and spread.
Just quickly, is this you, Chuck?
I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price.
Oh, wait, he goes on in this, doesn't he?
You won't know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions.
I mean, that is quite literally right there. Most people hear the whirlwind and they stop there, and they don't play the rest of the other half of that, where he says, if you go forward with these decisions, you will pay the price. Like, that is a direct threat from a co-equal branch of government at the Supreme Court of the United States. But please tell me more about the Truth Social post, where nobody ever mentions, like, none of these retards out there are, oh, well, they said illegal orders, disobey illegal orders. Okay, well, President Trump said, put them on trial, arrest them, put them on trial, and then hang them if they're found guilty.
Well, yeah, I mean, he also didn't even say hang them. He just reposted somebody else's post that said George Washington would have hung them. He's talking about seditious conspiracy. It's interesting that he was posting that around the same time that they were bringing the corpse of Dick Cheney into his funeral that was attended by, like, the entire uniparty. Rachel Maddow and Anthony Fauci were there. What are they doing at Dick Cheney's funeral? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense, except for, of course, the uniparty has come together much more publicly. Chuck Schumer said that if we don't draw the line here, there will be no lines left to draw. And then he said that Trump had already crossed that line. And they've been saying things like that for a decade now. And Trump keeps crossing their lines, and then they keep just drawing new lines because they're desperate to have public blowback against Trump, no matter what it requires. I don't know how everybody is so put off by this. And that's part of the op, I would assume. You want people to be talking about this. You want the freak out, and then the come down from the freak out, where people begin having discussions like, hey, what is sedition? What is treason? What is the death penalty? Can the death penalty be warranted? And the idea that he's calling for political violence is nonsense. He's calling for the legal system to function as it was designed in the Constitution. And I'll take a break there, but I want to say more about the treason thing.
Sure. Me and Alpha talked about this last night, and I'll just play this clip real quick. He brought up assassinations.
Look what happened.
And wasn't it like a week or so before that Joe Biden said we got to put the crosshairs on Donald Trump?
Yeah, and it was 2 days before that when J.D. Vance's mentor, Peter Thiel, has had a shouting match with Reid Hoffman of Epstein fame, the progressive activist that Donald Trump can't stop talking about over this last week. The two of them were having a shouting match at a private billionaire meeting in Sun Valley, Idaho, where they talked about martyring Donald Trump. And then 2 days after assassination event number one, J.D. Vance, of course, was announced on Truth Social as the running mate for the fake campaign of 2024. But back to the treason thing. During the founding era, the definition of treason was much broader than it is as it's written in the Constitution. They considered usurpations treason. They considered a number of different acts levying war against the sovereign. And the sovereign in America is the people. And so usurping power from the people is a usurpation. That is treason. And serving illegitimately in so-called elected office, that qualifies. So basically all of the people, including and especially Chuck Schumer, but the people in the video and the rest of it, all of them fall under the category of having committed treason. And Donald Trump is a wartime president, as he noted many times during the first term, and has made it clear since coming back that he remains a wartime president. It's just weird that he gave it up for 4 years while Joe Biden was president.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. That's a great interpretation of, the founding generation and what they interpret it as. The other thing, and this is something, a little more away from your point, but we talked about this last night. Congress has no authority and no right at all to be addressing the military, period. Mm-hmm. That is not, there's no constitutional avenue where the Congress is justified in addressing the military without the consent of the president. Now, of course, you can go visit the troops and talk with them and all that, but that's something consensual. The president said, that's fine. Yeah, go ahead and address the troops. You want to rally the troops, that's great. But to actually address them and tell the troops that you don't have to obey an unlawful order, not citing any examples here, you have a generation of, warriors in our military that were, brought in during the Biden administration that actually obeyed unlawful orders and took a forced emergency youth authorization, quote unquote, vaccine. And those that didn't, that disobeyed the unlawful order, were kicked out and cast to the pits of hell and had their lives destroyed. Those of them that took it against their free will and pushed back against it, and I'm trying to remember her name off the top of my head. I've interviewed her a couple times. Caroline, she was on with Catherine Herridge after we interviewed her, but she's gone through hell and back over the vaccine. A lot of people throughout the military, Teresa Long, Captain Teresa Long has documented, or Lieutenant Colonel, excuse me, has documented a lot of the injustices that have been thrown. That was an unlawful order. Where the hell was Congress on that? The CIA hacks, the spooks, Alyssa Slotkin. And I'm going to play her clip here as well, because that's another thing that's dangerous about this. Do not intertwine in the public image. We know they're intertwined in reality. Do not intertwine the intelligence with our military in the public image. That is a dangerous, dangerous thing to do, and put the CIA on a pedestal. The CIA should be scrutinized to the fullest extent possible, because there is no opportunity to scrutinize them. Everything they do is fucking classified. Do you want to comment on that before I play Slotkin?
Yeah, I would just say the conversation over the unlawful orders is a good one to have, and I'm glad we're having it, because there are issues remaining from that first term where, like Mark Milley, for instance. Yes. And Milley appeared at Dick Cheney's funeral yesterday. So there are ways that I think that this stuff is going to reflect back on a lot of what we've been dealing with over however many years. But if you are stealing elections, you are committing treason, especially if it's in a time of national emergency, and it was. I mean, there's just so many ways to get to the treason claim against the people attempting to paint Donald Trump as the one who is acting unlawfully, unconstitutionally, immorally, et cetera. And I'll just mention one more thing. Suppressing the rights of people under the color of law is also a usurpation. It is also treason. It is also levying war against the sovereign.
Yeah, let's play this clip, and then I want to chime in on that thought there for a moment.
I'm Senator Alyssa Slotkin, senator from Michigan, former CIA officer. Earlier today, President Trump threatened myself and a number of other service and veteran lawmakers with arrest, trial, and death because he didn't agree with a video we put out this week.
By the way, that's not a threat. That's just that's the standard procedure for due process in this country.
As the chief law enforcement officer of the country, whose duty it is to enforce the law. Like, it's not like Donald Trump in his position as president. I know that we've become accustomed to politics in a certain way, but it's his duty to execute the laws of the nation under the Constitution.
And all he did was outline the process. That's it.
Yeah.
This is how we do it. Arrest them, put them on trial, and if they're found guilty, they hang or put to death, firing squad, whatever it might be.
This really isn't about those of us who made the video.
Yes, it is.
This is about who we are as Americans and how we're going to engage with people who we disagree with. I would hope that people of all backgrounds, Democrat, Republican, Independent, would agree that threatening death for people you disagree with is beyond the pale of who we are as Americans. I love this country. It has given me everything, everything. And I refuse to believe that this is the new normal. I refuse to believe that we're going to use fear and intimidation against people we disagree with. And I'm not going to be forced away from speaking up on behalf of my country. I swore an oath to the Constitution many times, most recently less than a year ago as a senator, to the Constitution, not to any one man, not to any one president. And I abide by that oath. For me, I believe in the power of this country and that we are better than our current politics represent. And I refuse to be intimidated out of defending the country I love.
It's amazing how they always chalk this up whenever Donald Trump actually suggests that corrupt uniparty politicians are held accountable for the crimes they have committed against America and its people. They reframe it as political opponents, and he is having them pursued over a disagreement. That is not what's happening here. And we should be very cautious not to let the people who are kind of in our circles talking about this sort of thing, to let them repeat that unchecked, that this is just about people we disagree with politically, and that Donald Trump is just seeking vengeance. It is none of those things. These people are encouraging the military to look for opportunities to suggest that Donald Trump's orders are unlawful and then act against them. And there are proper channels for that, by the way. I'm not suggesting that the military should obey unlawful orders just because it's Donald Trump giving them or anything, right? I mean, we can agree to that point, and it's good that that conversation is being had. Anyway, I'll shut up. Go ahead.
No, you're fine, man. The problem that I have with this, and I think this is absolutely a desperation move as the walls are closing in on them. And we use that term all the time here. And it's usually in regards to President Trump, because that's what they've been heralding for the last, 8 years. The walls are closing in. The walls are closing in. We've got them now. And how did they get them? Or how did they think they got them? With, things like the Russia hoax, the 2020 election, the COVID pandemic, all the bullshit. When President Trump says seditious conspiracy in a broadly, in a broad, truth post like that with no context outside of seditious conspiracy equals death, they automatically assume it's in response to that. I look at everything that's being exposed right now about the collaboration between Brennan, Obama, Clapper, all the people that we've seen, and we've known about this. We just haven't had maybe the in-depth insight that we have now. We didn't have the ability to actually, execute a plan on, not execute, but, enact a plan on going about getting accountability for all this. And now all of a sudden you're seeing that this is like the dying death curdle, right? This is the little like gargling that you do before you see, well, I don't know how many people have seen people die, but this is the little gargle you get before you die. And this is, I don't know, man. I love to see this. I love their reaction to this. I love the, coming at him now. Oh, he called for our death. You've been calling for his death for 8 years. You tried to impeach him before he was even sworn into office. You stole an election from us. Okay, I'm done ranting.
No, you're right. This is something though that's been ongoing for years, and actually was an issue in the first term when Trump brought back the death penalty, the federal execution thing. By the way, I just pulled up a link there for Rolling Stone. This is an article from February 14th of 2023.
Hell yeah.
And this is not their only one. I actually did an episode on this the day after. It's called What Killing Spree. So you can go to imyourmoderator.substack.com and find that. But Trump plans to bring back firing squads and group executions if he retakes the White House. So they've been on about this stuff for quite a long time. And could we see it? I think we probably could see it. And it's especially interesting yesterday. I mean, I know that this is one of those kind of truth community, conspiracy theorist speculation sorts of things, but Dick Cheney, the fact that this comes up exactly as they're carting Dick Cheney into his funeral is at least somewhat notable. I think the last thing to mention is, and this is something I noticed when I watched the initial video by, I don't know, the 6 or 7 of them that first time. One of them in particular, that younger woman, I'm not familiar with her really, but I believe it was her who said this Constitution. She referred to it as this Constitution rather than the Constitution. And that makes me only think of the fact that 160 years ago, our Constitution was totally inverted with a layer of abstraction stacked on top of the original Constitution. And they basically govern themselves and operate only within that layer of abstraction. So within that layer, they don't even believe that Donald Trump is a real president. And if the military were to follow any of his orders, that would violate the abstraction and the way they have set the country up within that abstraction, that would be unlawful on their terms. So I think it's always important to like really try to deeply understand the language and what they mean from their perspective. And we can't just conflate everything called constitutional as the Constitution. We've talked about this a number of times. The laws, the rules, the statutes, the regulations. D. Dale in the chat mentioned common law. All of these things are not actually the Constitution. They are just layers of abstraction stacked on top of the Constitution. And that's what they want to make sure everything adheres to.
The last thing I'll say on this, and I know, guys, I've been talking about this all, since that story broke, 2 days ago or a day ago, whatever the case might be. I've been talking about it a lot. And that's because it really hits home for me, obviously, being that I served in the Marine Corps. Sure. And to see something like that. I served under the Obama administration. I hated Barack Obama, hated him, but he was my commander in chief. And I obeyed every order that I was given by him. I disagreed with them. I thought when he announced ahead of the invasion in Sangin, or not Sangin, Marja, when he announced weeks in advance that we were going to be conducting operations in there and got hundreds of guys killed as a result of that, because every corner, and I know guys that were in that raid, I was in a blocking position on it. Guys were walking around every corner and there were IEDs everywhere. Everything was booby trapped because he announced that we were conducting operations in there. The most retarded thing you could ever do, but still we did it. We did it. We went through and did it. Mm-hmm. And so when I see Congress addressing in a government structure where we have co-equal branches of government, and you have a co-equal branch with the president of the United States telling the military, which he is the commander in chief of, they have no authority over the military other than budgeting and to raise a military, which is also, let's take that into consideration. Let's raise a military when necessary. To see them addressing them like that, and I'm trying to draw like an equivalent, and I can't. Has President Trump ever come out and said, and if he did, they would have crushed him for this, disobey the Supreme Court's ruling on this? Joe Biden has. Joe Biden did.
Yeah, I would say that Donald Trump has been extremely careful, not to suggest anything that would violate the original Constitution. Donald Trump adheres to the original Constitution, and he adheres to the abstraction and messages toward the abstraction, because he understands that the people of this nation are familiar with the abstraction and far less familiar with the original Constitution, because the original Constitution has been completely obscured from them intentionally throughout our lives. Right? We are not educated about the original Constitution, except, the mythology of how it came to be and the rest of it. We are educated on the abstraction and what that means. And as we advance in formal education, and I think as formal education advances in time, both of those become more committed to only that abstraction. You go to law school, you get some of the original Constitution, and then you get all of the abstraction so that you can perform the job of a bar-approved regime attorney in our illegitimate justice system.
Yep, 100%. Let's jump into this article. Speaking of, unlawful orders, President Trump is broadly kicking ass in these courts once he gets beyond the district court, and you want to talk about co-equal branches of government. What type of collusion is there between, the establishment, the deep state, whatever you want to call it, and these district court judges that keep getting these rulings wrong? I had somebody yesterday, point out that, California district judge overturned Trump's deployment of the National Guard in California and another one in Oregon. And then like 2 seconds of research shows that the Ninth Circuit, one of the more liberal appellate courts in the country, overturned that district court's ruling and gave President Trump the authority over the California Guard to federalize them. And then another one in Oregon, another appellate court, put that one on hold, the ruling there. Now, this one is interesting. From Reuters, U.S. judge moves to halt Trump's National Guard deployment in Washington, D.C. This one, and I don't know if the timing of this coordinates with that, letter that they put out. You know what I'm saying? Like Washington, it's interesting. U.S. District Judge Jaya Cobb, an appointee of the auto pen, temporarily blocked the Trump administration from deploying troops to enforce the law in the nation's capital without approval from its mayor. However, she paused her ruling until December 11th to allow the administration to appeal. It's almost like she knew that this is going to get, overturned. White House spokeswoman Abigail Jackson said in a statement that Trump acted lawfully and called the lawsuit an attempt to undermine his successful efforts to stop violent crime. District of Columbia Attorney General Brian Schwab, an elected Democrat, sued on September 4th after Trump announced the deployment on August 11th. Trump has unique law enforcement powers in Washington, D.C., but local officials say he overstepped it by supplanting the mayor's policing authority and violated legal prohibitions against federal troops doing civilian police work. The interesting thing about this, Chris, are the dates and the timing. So Schwab sues on September 4th, and we're not getting a ruling from a district court judge until mid-November.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. That does seem like, because of the subject matter, I guess that seems kind of long. But I mean, that's not an unreasonable amount of time for a case to proceed through the court system generally, right? You're saying because of the importance of the issue, and there's a presidential, constitutional.
Yeah. So if you look at all the other cases, they've all been expedited review, right? California was heard within a week, Oregon within a week. A lot of these cases are heard right away. This case here is going on 2.5 months. And it took him a month to file it from the day that he deployed the troops in August, that he deployed the troops in DC. So again, I mean, this ruling is coming literally, I think, the day of that unlawful order. And it's in DC. So as of right now, if something happens in DC and President Trump deploys the National Guard, they'll scream, "This is an unlawful order. We tried to warn you about this." Meanwhile, it's on stay. The decision stayed and will likely go to the DC Court of Appeals, the DC Circuit. So I don't know. I just thought that the timing on that was really interesting. And let's get into this here from Reuters. Larry Summers is leaving his position at Harvard and OpenAI after the Epstein emails. The first major casualty, I would say, since the Epstein release. Now, previously, he had, stepped down from the board and was still going to teach. There's the video of him in class. "With your permission, I'm going to continue teaching this class." Well, apparently he didn't get permission. Larry Summers has stepped down from positions at Harvard University and the OpenAI board amid the continuing fallout from his ties to Epstein. Summers is among the highest level U.S. personalities to pay a price for his relationship to Epstein. I love personalities. The documents show that Summers continued to stay in touch with Epstein after his 2008 conviction, asking him at one point for a relationship advice. No evidence has surfaced that he was involved in sex trafficking with Epstein. Several other organizations, including the Peterson Institute for International Economics and the Center for American Progress, confirmed that Summers was stepping away from his associations with them as well. And the New York Times said it would not renew a one-year contributor contract signed with him in January. Spain's Santander said that he had resigned from an international advisory board he chaired for the bank.
The Center for American Progress, by the way, is John Podesta.
Is it really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I knew they had to be, swampy ass, NGOs and all that. I did not know that. That's fascinating. I think this is an interesting precedent. I like to see that it went full bore on him stepping away from all this, and just on the insinuation that he potentially was engaged. It doesn't even, outright accuse him of anything, any wrongdoing, but just the association with a pedophile after he was convicted as a pedophile is fascinating, especially considering Hakeem Jeffries, Stacey Plaskett, all the contacts that we've already seen, Michael Wolff. We haven't even gotten to the the meat and potatoes of who's going to be in these emails. You're not going to get anything out of it. It's going to be a massive rug, but at the same time, Larry Summers stepping away kind of lays the foundation. Like, hey, you guys got to follow the Larry Summers model here and step away. I don't think anybody in Congress will ever step away, but maybe we'll see some, deterioration of some of these NGOs and whatnot, the boards run by these crooks.
That would be helpful. I mean, NGOs shouldn't exist. NGOs are being paid by the government, by the taxpayers, to do things that the government is not allowed to do, and things that the government is not allowed to delegate to private organizations to do. So yeah, the whole system needs to be eliminated. It just does. And no half measures. We need to get all the way there. Anything that is said to clean up or fix or alter or mend the NGO system, not good enough. It's got to be eliminated.
100%. Let's jump into this story. So yesterday we talked about the Comey indictment and the freak out, and there was like, I've never seen anything like it. The freak out on X over this, when people just had to simply do a quick search to realize that this judge is an absolute partisan hack. Interim U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan submits transcripts of grand jury 4-person confirming vote on Comey's 2-count indictment. I wrote this article last night when I saw this filing. And it says here that the court says, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So you voted on the one that has the 2 counts. The 4-person responds yes. Then it goes on to say the 4-person says, so the 3 counts should be just 1 count. It was the very first count that we did not agree on, and count 2 and 3 were then put in a different package, which we did agree on. So I don't know what that judge was doing there. Obviously I'm not a lawyer, which kind of ties into the message to the military, telling the military, you don't have to disobey, you don't have to obey an unlawful order. Well, they're not lawyers. Right. So Congress telling them to interpret the law is a dog whistle. Absolutely.
Well, it's also a way to get a lot of them in trouble, which is really weird.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But when you look at this situation here, so we talked about this yesterday, all Halligan did, and the other prosecutors working with her, all they did was they took the 2 counts that the grand jury returned. Mm-hmm. They took the one that they did not return and they removed it. Mm-hmm. And then they just resubmitted it. The judge not knowing this is mind-boggling to me. And calling her out in court like that and embarrassing her and humiliating her in front of the defense counsel is bizarre, especially considering that wasn't what they were arguing. They were arguing vindictive prosecution. The judge brought that up on his own accord, mm-hmm. that the indictment might not even be legitimate, and then goes on to ask defense counsel, is she a puppet or a stalking horse for President Trump? Look, again, I'm not an attorney, but the American Bar Association model of judicial conduct says that you cannot show any appearance of impropriety as a judge. You cannot show impartiality, or you have to remain impartial. I don't understand how this judge continues on with this case at this point.
Yeah, I mean, impartiality, all these things, that's like objectivity in journalism, right? We pretend that these organizations and institutions operate under these refined principles, but they don't. And we should stop pretending, because they can't really. Also, this is not how our courts were intended to be set up. This is not how a judicial system could possibly function in a nation of people expressing sovereign liberty. It just isn't. Jonathan Drake has been doing his No Treason podcast, talking
great show.
A lot about Lysander Spooner and the importance of trial by jury. That was supposed to be a jury of our actual peers deciding not only whether or not we were guilty or innocent of violating some certain law or what have you, they were also testing the law. And we need to be at that place, not this ridiculous place we're at now.
Yeah, I agree, man. Again, and the funny thing is I have not seen, so I read the filings from Halligan last night, and they're not making that argument. And I played with Perplexity, ChatGPT, and Grok, trying to prod it to get, would a prosecutor have to represent their case if if they only approved 2 out of 3 indictments and they just removed it? Would they have to represent the case to the grand jury? And I cannot for the life of me get it to say yes, they would have to represent their case to the grand jury. Every single time it's saying no, they don't have to. And there's SCOTUS, law on this, ex parte Bain. I talked about this yesterday. SCOTUS has already determined that narrowing the scope of an indictment, meaning taking away charges, taking away facts, removing stuff that is beneficial to the defendant, is permissible. So I just this reminds me of the Colorado judge, and we've played this so many times when Senator Kennedy was questioning him during his confirmation, where he asked how he would analyze a Brady motion, and the guy said, "I've never had the opportunity. I don't know what a Brady motion is." Right. I mean, this is law school 101, like first day of law school type stuff. So yeah. All right.
We're pretty far around the bend, and it's worth remembering that we saw a series of totally fake and illegitimate indictments against Donald Trump during the 4-year period where he was a wartime president, but Joe Biden was really president.
Yeah. The most discouraging thing about this, Chris, is that, there's people that I trust in the legal realm, right? In terms of their analysis on certain legal things. And they were just dooming out on this and woefully wrong, flat out wrong. And
Normie brain, my friends, Normie brain.
Yeah,
you can know everything about a subject. You can have all the information on recall. You can speak about all of it eloquently. But if you are operating in the wrong paradigm, the thought paradigm, the analysis is going to be nothing. I just wrote an article that I posted this week called "Elections Are Fake," and I talked about that at various points in the article. Like, we cannot search for solutions on how to fix our elections if people don't admit and understand what it means that our elections are fake and what the implications are for our government, for the rules which govern us. There's a level to which we can all say, okay, well, we know that elections are messed up. We know that the process are messed up. We know that the results are hard to verify, hard to trust. The next step is to say, what does it mean in our society that that's how it is? What does it mean that all of our political media is focused on elections all the time? What does it mean that we spent 2 or 3 months talking about Zoran Mamdani, and as soon as that ended, now we're talking for a year about midterms?
Yep.
Fake elections we know to be fake. And of course, we're going to hear about the primaries. Dude, people are unwilling to let go of the prior thought paradigm because it seems like it's going to mean we don't know anything anymore and we are totally lost. No, being in the wrong thought paradigm means you are lost all the time while you're in it. Leaving that behind makes you less lost. It's just a recognition, oh, we are actually lost. It's not the illusion of having a real map of how things are.
I had somebody that, I respect somewhat, bring up that same thing about, Congress's illegitimacy and why I support a regime that is pushing towards an autocracy and delegitimizing our Congress. And I made almost that same point, that Congress has delegitimized themselves. First off, elections, but second off, they want that Congress wants to be 50-50. Don't make no mistake about that. They want that contention among them. They want the hostility because it is fundraising gold. And like Chris said, we're going into midterm fundraising season. Be prepared. Your phones are going to start blowing up. I remember, when we used to get those text messages and emails, it would be like 3 or 4 months before an election, maybe 2 months before a primary. It's going now. I'm having to type stop. Donald Trump is texting me every damn day.
We're getting polling analysis about Elise Stefanik versus Kathy Hochul in New York's fake governor election next year. You also mentioned the 50-50 in the Congress. They want 50-50 in the Senate. They want 50-50 in the populace, so that we always believe that we are divided about everything. And therefore, when we come together and quote unquote compromise, by implementing the regime agenda, well, that's what we get, because no side could win the argument. It's always 50-50 in everything, except our elections are fake and the polls are fake and the census is fake. So 50-50 on everything. What is the proof of that out in the world? Well, there is no proof. We just all believe it because the television says it all the time, and they show us pieces of what we are told are real world scientific evidence, polling, and election results. We're totally around the bend, and without shifting thought paradigms, it's impossible to deal with this stuff on a real and effective basis. We are just in the imaginary world of the television.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. All right. Before we move on to the next story here, I want to share a quick story about a farming family supporting this channel. 8 years ago, they had a brother return from Afghanistan with significant injuries. They watched as he became a shell of his former self and struggled a lot with his health. We can't share the exact story because of FDA restrictions, but his friends kept suggesting CBD, so they tried dozens of CBD products, but nothing helped. Out of frustration, they began to create their own. They started making it to help friends and family have CBD that they knew was clean and powerful as possible. And then doctors started asking to carry it, and it took off. Now they speak at medical conventions and help others across the U.S. And while most companies have 1 to 10 compounds in CBD oil, their oil has up to 50. They have 8 things that make them different. They make balms, gummies, pet products, etc. They're called Emerald Med, and you should check these guys out. If you get their CBD and don't notice a big difference, they'll actually provide a refund. If you want to support a company that supports our channel and free speech with marketing dollars, then you need this, and you need a source for CBD that's real. They're running an early Black Friday deal. You can click the link below to try Emerald Med, 40% off today. Get extreme muscle and joint relief, support quality sleep, or even daytime calm. And they're worth a try at least once. Just click the link below and use the code for 40% off up to 2 items today. And I'll tell you, man, that story resonates with me, man. Coming back from Afghanistan and just being all jacked up. That was the same thing I was in, and same story. A friend recommended I try cannabis broadly, not just CBD, but THC as well. Life-changing, absolutely life-changing. And, right now in the one big, beautiful bill, Congress, put the ban in there, back in there again. And, everybody's talking about the $500,000 they get. Nobody's talking about the veterans that are going to lose, their medicinal freedom to stay off of the pharmaceutical pills that they subscribe. And I reached out to the folks at Emerald CBD, and hopefully we're going to get them on sit rep here pretty soon to talk about this. Cool. Because that addition to that bill is absolutely devastating to many veterans and all sorts of people who use CBD and THC for medical reasoning.
Yeah, it's also weirdly contradictory to Trump's right to try stuff.
Isn't it?
Like the idea that people cannot choose what to put in their own bodies, and the state shouldn't be regulating any of this stuff to begin with. So,
well, especially, and this is one of the things that, when I was doing the documentary with Boone Cutler back around 2016 or so, we did a panel, and one of the things he said on the panel was that when you're going through a pharmacological testing on a drug, you give it until it gets to a level of toxicity, and then you back it down a little bit, and that's your maximum dosage right there. And he says, this is almost a direct quote, with CBD and THC, non-toxic, never gets to toxic. FDA, get the fuck out. That's his exact words. Get the fuck out. And that's the way it should be. Sorry. But yeah, this is something detrimental. And it is interesting, the timing. You brought up the right to try, but even more significant than that, Trump just put out that truth like a month ago about CBD and the endocannabinoid system, and how you don't remember this?
I don't think I saw that.
Oh, dude, President Trump truthed out a video about CBD and how.
Oh, yeah. So it was like a repost, though, right? Or was it his own post?
It wasn't his own post, but he posted. It wasn't like a retruth. He posted it as his own content. It wasn't Donald Trump retruth this.
Sure.
He posted as his own content, talking about the endocannabinoid and how it can push back against, senior aging and a lot of the ailments that senior citizens especially suffer from. And then like a month later, we get this bill where they ban it outright.
Mm-hmm.
and the THC, the Delta 9 stuff, I understand that because that's synthetic, and I don't want the synthetic. I don't do like the Delta 9 and all that, and Delta 8.
What about it is synthetic? Isn't it just hemp derived?
It's hemp derived, but hemp produces so little THC that they like have to manipulate the extract. They have to manipulate, and I don't know the science behind it. I'm not going to pretend I did.
No,
but
no worries. I wasn't trying to put you on the spot.
No, they synthesize the THC that comes out of hemp. So typically THC comes out of cannabis sativa, the cannabis plant, as opposed to the hemp plant, which is more the CBD and all that stuff. So, all right, I did not want to go off that long of a tangent there.
By the way, here's the Trump thing you were talking about. End of September, Trump floats Medicare coverage for CBD and video post, sparking buzz. You can get a buzz just from Trump's post.
Yeah, I mean the mainstream media can.
Yeah,
they can get Trump derangement syndrome. It's like the nicotine high you get, or not.
Man, there's a lot of people, quote unquote, on the right with Trump derangement syndrome too.
Everybody has it right now. Everybody has it right now. And I well, let's get into the next story, and then we'll get into the geopolitics. Virginia Beach assistant principal brother accused of plotting violence against ICE, police say. Now, normally I would. This is kind of it's not dumb, but it's such a small scale issue. But there's a big little hint in this article that I picked up on. John and Mark Bennett were each charged with 1 count of conspiracy to commit malicious wounding. John Bennett is employed as an assistant principal at Kempsville High School and has worked in the division since 2009. According to a criminal complaint, an off-duty Norfolk police officer overheard the 2 brothers while dining inside of a faux restaurant. The officer reported hearing the men talk about ICE agents, quote-unquote, kidnapping individuals, and said the conversation led him to believe the brothers, quote, needed to do something about it. The brothers discussed reuniting and planned to fly to Las Vegas to meet with, quote unquote, like-minded individuals and return with, quote, enforcement ideas and plans. Mark also said he recently purchased an assault rifle because it could fire explosive rounds, false, capable of penetrating body armor, and claimed he wanted to, quote unquote, go hunting. Mark Bennett had purchased a plane ticket for November 9th, which was 2 days ago. This part
in Virginia Beach, police are investigating a stabbing that happened today. Police say officers were called to Kempsville Road around 12:30 and found a man who had been stabbed. He was taken to the hospital.
Okay, I don't know why that's playing. The interesting part about that, Chris, is the disclosure that they were going to Vegas, right, to meet with other like-minded individuals and come up with an enforcement plan. That kind of sounds like something that they should have left out of the criminal complaint and had, some sort of a sting operation to figure. It sounds like it's, like a group getting together to plot how to subvert, this enforcement.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the outer context of that, so I can't comment on that. But
I mean, you think of 2 guys that are going to fly from Virginia to Vegas. Vegas is infamous for, well, not infamous, but famous for, conferences and that kind of thing. And you kind of think that's a centralized location where you can draw people there. I wonder how big this was, and if we're going to see any news in the coming days or weeks about a potential sting operation to uncover this, this ring that was operating and planning on retaliating against ICE and DHS. Yeah, I don't know. I thought that was interesting. All right, let's jump into some geopolitics here. First, we got this story from Bloomberg. Colombia backs idea of Maduro leaving power and avoiding jail. Speaking of fake elections, Colombia said it would favor a path for Maduro to hand over power to a transitional government tasked with organizing new elections over the alternative of a more forceful U.S. intervention in its neighbors' affairs. The transition proposal is making the rounds in diplomatic circles in Washington, Caracas, and beyond as a potential solution to the U.S. standoff with Venezuela. Colombia's Foreign Affairs Minister, Rosa Villavicencio, said, quote, Maduro would be inclined to accept it. He could leave without necessarily ending up in prison. Someone else could come in to lead that transition and allow for elections that are legitimate. Maduro hasn't said anything in public that indicates he would consider the proposal. A White House official said no U.S. negotiations with Venezuela are currently occurring. Colombia's foreign ministry called Villavicencio's remarks as, quote, decontextualized information published in the media. Petro's government added that it, quote, respects the sovereignty of the sister nation of Venezuela. I thought that reminded me of the 60 Minutes where Joe Biden, when they asked what his policy on Taiwan is, and he said, would you intervene if China invaded? And he said, yes. And then in the very next scene, they have him talking over saying the White House has reached out and said that they would not intervene. And that it's, if the foreign minister of Colombia says something, his office comes back behind him and is like, that's decontextualized. He didn't mean that, or she didn't mean that.
Yeah. I mean, you can just, whenever I'm trying to think about these things, I always try to give them a parallel in the United States of America, right? So if we had Hakeem Jeffries or Chuck Schumer or some Democrat leader, or even someone in Trump's administration who was not Trump, saying whatever they might say about geopolitics, and we hear in the media that is from Trump's administration, or the opposition leader in America says XYZ about what Trump's going to do, none of that matters at all, because they have no decision-making authority. They have been trying to remove Maduro for a very long time. And the way that they've been trying to remove Maduro for a very long time is by getting him to agree to just set up elections in Venezuela where someone else would be named the winner. And the regime, the energy companies, various globalist organizations, philanthropists, NGOs, banks, etc., that have all had interest in Venezuela because of its natural resources. All of those have been trying to remove Maduro and have elections that they control, just like they control the elections in all of their other little proxy states. And so the idea that Maduro is going to agree to that, and that if he doesn't, there's going to be a U.S. military threat, all of that is just preposterous.
Agreed. And speaking of the usual suspects, Petro and Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva have called for new Venezuelan elections after the 2024 vote was widely condemned as fraudulent. Isn't that freaking rich? Isn't that absolutely rich? Lula da Silva calling for legitimate elections to take place. I'm old enough to remember the Brazilian election between him and Bolsonaro, and just seeing, it was, you talked about mirrors in the United States. It was reminiscent of President Trump.
Yeah.
Millions of people showing up to rallies and protests and everything in favor of Bolsonaro. But of course, Da Silva, the recent criminal, he was the one that won. And of course, then they have their J8 reenactment, the J6 reenactment on January 8th. Yeah. Lastly, it says Bogota was until recently a strong ally of Washington, but relations have soured badly since the start of the Trump second term. President Trump has called Petro a lunatic and an illegal drug dealer / aide, and revoked his visa.
A strong ally of Washington prior to Trump. What does that mean? First of all, what should that mean to us? Then we talk about the elections in Venezuela and the claim that Maduro somehow stole this election last year over, I think his name's Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia. Yep. And then Maria Corina Machado is just the quote unquote opposition leader, but didn't even run in the election. The claim that Maduro stole that election comes from Edison Research exit polls. That's meaningless. So an American organization does exit polling in Venezuela, and based on that exit polling, they're going to call the integrity of an election into question? We're not allowed to do things like that.
Sorry. I'm with you
for a second. I was like,
no. I got a text. I just had to confirm something. No, I'm with you 100% on that. I don't know what the path is here. If we see election fraud first exposed in Venezuela, which would be kind of fitting if there somehow was the possibility that this would happen. And I don't think there is. I'm just being clear on that, but it would be fascinating if that was the first place that kind of did this. Although we already have the expose there. We had Mujica, the CEO of Smartmatic, in 2017 testifying that millions of votes were stolen. And, of course, blamed it on human error and improper oversight from poll watchers and whatnot, trying to kick the can down the road on that. But the Venezuela-Colombia thing is fascinating. When they say that they were strong allies of the U.S., they're not talking about, the United States as, the constitutional republic that we are. They're talking about the United States intelligence apparatus and the CIA running the, drugs into black communities to absolutely destroy and decimate them. It's a funding apparatus. If you watch Alpha and Colonel Towner when they talk about Gladio and everything else, and she goes all throughout the CIA's drug running. There was just an article. Let me see if I can find this up. There was an article that came out. I showed this. I haven't had a chance to go through it thoroughly yet, but this kind of piggybacks off of what I'm saying about the drug running. Here it is. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. Inside the CIA's secret mission to sabotage Afghanistan's opium. What a crock of shit that was. Anyways, let's I gotta read that article. I haven't done it yet. I just read about half of it. I gotta finish it. Let's jump into this story here. This is probably the biggest news of the day, and it's geopolitics. Axios, Trump's full 28-point Ukraine-Russia peace plan. Have you had a chance to go over this yet, Chris?
I have not spent too much time on it, but considering that most of the elements of this peace plan have been in place since prior to the very brutal invasion, I am content to just wait until this is all wrapped up.
Oh, I agree with you on that. Yeah. It's not lost on me that it's Barack Ravid, and if you subscribe to Ghost Theory, Barack Ravid is kind of in the ear, or he has somebody reliable in his ear about the Trump administration. So that is notable that it comes from him. But let's jump into this. President Trump's 28-point plan for peace in Ukraine forces Kyiv to give up additional territory in the east, cap the size of the military, and agree it will never join NATO, according to a draft obtained by Axios, verified by a Ukrainian official, a U.S. official, and a source familiar with the proposal.
So exactly the things that have been on the table for the entire time.
Pretty much. Do
you think about what Putin wanted before? Crimea is Russia. Crimea has been Russia for 11 years. Crimea is never not going to be Russia. The areas in the Donbass, they wanted them independent. Now they're going to be de facto Russia, so it's even worse for Ukraine than it initially was. They wanted to demilitarize and denazify, which means get rid of the global regime presence and their ability to launch attacks on those independent republics on the eastern portion of Ukraine. They wanted them to stay out of the EU and NATO. That's obviously going to happen. And what's the rest of it? Just the territory? No,
we're gonna go through them. Right. You're half right on the EU NATO thing, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Okay, explain.
There's a point in there that Ukraine can join the EU.
Okay.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Will the EU be standing by that point, or will NATO? I would doubt both.
No. Will Russia stand by that point?
What do you mean?
Russia won't permit Ukraine to join the EU.
No. I mean, will the EU and NATO even be a thing? By
the time okay.
Right. Okay.
So,
yeah,
so have you ever seen Something About Mary?
I have. Yeah.
You know the scene where I can't remember the comedian's name, but they're driving in the car. He picked up the hitchhiker and he's like, I'm going to be a millionaire. I've got the ultimate plan, 8-minute abs. I'm going to do 7-minute abs. And then Ben Stiller's character's like, what happens when they do 6-minute abs? No, it's 7 minutes. That's what this reminds me of. Trump's 20-point plan in Israel. Well, I'm going to one up that. I got a 28-point plan now. This is fascinating. And you're spot on. The fact that it's everything that they've already had the whole time. Yeah. The whole time. The plan was drafted by Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, with input from Marco Rubio and Jared Kushner. Witkoff consulted with Russian envoy Kirill Dmitriev, which is notable. Dmitriev told Axios he is optimistic about it because, unlike past efforts, quote, we feel the Russian position is really being heard. Putin has not publicly endorsed the plan. What'd you pull up here?
This is from Something About Mary. Oh, man, I stepped on it. Can we start that over?
I work with retards.
Isn't that a little politically incorrect?
Oh, The hell with that. No one's going to tell me who I can and can't work with, right?
How is that not on my soundboard?
Yeah.
Send me that clip. Put that clip in the chat. That's got to go on my soundboard.
All right.
All right, getting back into it a little bit serious. We got to be totally serious with this, Chris. 28-point plan, going to end the Russian-Ukraine war that's probably been over since it began. All right, so Kirill Dmitriev being involved in this is very interesting. He's been, a QAnon influencer. Has Media Matters written a hit piece about him yet? After meeting with Dmitriev, Witkoff and Kushner also discussed the plan with Zelensky's national security advisor, Rustam Umerov. What a name. Army Secretary Dan Driscoll presented the plan to Zelensky on Thursday in writing. Afterwards, Zelensky said he was prepared to hold talks about it with Trump and his team. Zelensky described the U.S. vision, described the plan as a U.S. vision, but not a final offer. He said Ukraine had been clear about its red lines and would give its input to make the plan, quote unquote, truly meaningful. I think President Trump would look at that and just laugh. Like, you don't have a dog in this fight anymore, dude. All right, so here's the full plan. Let's go through this. Number one, Ukraine's sovereignty will be confirmed. Okay. Number two, a comprehensive non-aggression agreement will be concluded between Russia, Ukraine, and Europe. All ambiguities of the last 30 years will be considered settled.
Wow,
Okay.
30 years. Okay, so that goes back to an interesting era. All right, go ahead.
That goes back to their inception. The country's only 30 years old.
Well, yeah, and we're in that phase of kind of the breakup of the Soviet Union and the fall of communism in Europe, which was basically just a cover story for the regime taking over all of these countries in Europe and replacing their constitutions as they did in Poland, etc.
Right. It is expected that Russia will not invade neighboring countries and NATO will not expand further. Not an inch further. Who was it that said that? The Secretary of State? Was it James Baker? Said that NATO will not expand another inch to the east.
I remember what you're talking about. I don't remember who said it.
I think it was Baker. Number four, a dialogue will, by the way, NATO will not expand further because NATO is going to contract. It's going to implode. A dialogue will be held between Russia and NATO, mediated by the United States, to resolve all security issues and create conditions for de-escalation to ensure global security and future economic development. How does that happen? The United States is a party to NATO. It's the de facto leader of NATO, and they're going to be the ones mediating a negotiation between Russia and NATO. Like, of all the countries, you couldn't find anybody else, like China, any country, India, like anybody? No. Ukraine will receive reliable security guarantees, explicit security guarantees for Ukraine from the U.S. The first time that this has officially been on the table. That's interesting. Number six, the Ukrainian armed forces will be limited to 600,000 personnel. And then this is just absurd. Ukraine's current army has 800,000 to 850,000 personnel. It had around 250,000 before the war. Where the hell are they getting all these people? They want us to believe that they have 800,000 troops right now. They're losing, what was it, like 15,000 a week, we were told? And this war's like 3 years old now or 2 years old now. I mean, they can't possibly have 800,000 people.
All of it. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, all of it is bullshit. And we're just having the story play out in public so that the world knows what's actually been going on in these situations. And if there is a status quo ante, which there was obviously before the war, the way things were before Putin's very brutal invasion, if after nearly 4 years of very brutal invasion and a war that has killed millions of people, we come back and the parties agree to the same way that it was before, a war that killed millions of people did not happen. Okay. Like, that's just not possible, which means it didn't happen. It doesn't matter what the TV says.
Yeah. I mean,
this shit is crazy.
I can't totally subscribe to the, well, the only reason is, Chris, is I know people that I served with that went over there as mercenaries.
Sure. And I get it. And I'm not saying nothing happened there, but the
Right.
idea that a full scale invasion and this military conflict, and then, Ukraine captured Kursk, and the Wagner thing with, what is his name? Gosh,
The
man.
bald guy.
Yes, I can't think of his name, and I love that guy. He's one of my favorite characters. But that they were going to march on Moscow. Prigozhin. Yeah. Prigozhin. Yeah, that's what it is. Thank you.
That was a great character.
There's just too much of this shit that is just clearly fake and ridiculous to then take any part of it seriously. Which again does not deny that there's not special forces stuff going on, that there aren't skirmishes that need to be resolved. We know that there is a malignant force there that has to be eliminated, right? But the idea that Russia is fighting Ukraine and Ukraine has all this support from the US and all these European nations, that does not seem true.
I can get behind that 100%. And I've said that since the very first day of this war. If Russia wanted to take over, defeat Ukraine, it would happen in a week. It would happen. They just don't, even with the US backing, they don't have the resources to contend. Anyways, Ukraine agrees to enshrine in its constitution that it will not join NATO, and NATO agrees to include in its statutes a provision that Ukraine will not be admitted in the future. Number 8, NATO agrees not to station troops in Ukraine, and I would expand that and not station troops or spooks in Ukraine. So no more CIA operating out of Ukraine. It says, note, NATO countries including France and UK, have been working on separate proposals that would include small numbers of European troops in Ukrainian soil after the war. This plan appears to disregard that possibility.
Yeah, why would you allow that to happen if you're Vladimir Putin? And you have absolutely all the leverage. Putin has all the leverage, all of it. There's no leverage for Ukraine. There's no leverage for the Europeans. And to the extent that Donald Trump has leverage, and he very well does, he's operating in concert with Putin and with Xi. They are in the process of reforming these different parts of the world. The idea that anyone is going to set that plan off is insane. And of course, that's what they've been trying to do, using all the banking leverage possible and all the media leverage possible.
Spacey 118 in the YouTube chat says, yeah, aren't those World War II numbers, referring to the 800,000? I mean, it's only 500,000 more than we have active duty currently in the United States. We're at 1.3 million, give or take. So to think that Ukraine, which is, I think they have a smaller population than Florida. What's Ukraine's population? Isn't it like 30 million?
I don't even think it's that many. I didn't think it was that many. I thought it was like 23.
37.9, 42.9 million as of Thursday, November 20th. They have a live count,
but not quite.
Yeah, Texas. It's like California, Texas. There you go. I thought it was fascinating. As of November 20th, they have 42,973,212 or whatever the number is. That's insane to think that, they pass that off as if they're keeping it in real time. Every time somebody dies, the death ticker goes up a little bit. All right. Number 9, European fighter jets will be stationed in Poland. Number 10, the U.S. will receive compensation for the guarantee. If Ukraine invades Russia, it will lose the guarantee. If Russia invades Ukraine, all global sanctions will be reinstated. Recognition of the new territory and all other benefits of the deal will be revoked. Now, number 11 is the deal breaker for me, and this one's going to be the biggest hurdle, in my opinion. Ukraine is eligible for EU membership and will receive short-term preferential access to the European market while this issue is being considered. That's number 11. And the reason that I think that's going to be a deal breaker for Russia is because Russia absolutely does not want Ukraine in the EU. And this was, a big part of the 2014 Maidan and why Russia was so adamantly against, because that's the whole Maidan was ultimately over regime change in order to get Ukraine into the EU. And Russia's reasoning for not wanting Ukraine in the EU is because it would be a pass-through for European goods to make it into Russia without sanctions, without, tariffs. And that would have been, pretty detrimental to Russia and beneficial to the EU to get access to that market with Ukraine as the pass through. And so, Russia was obviously trying to prop up, Eastern aligned presidents in I think it was Poroshenko. And was it Poroshenko or Yanukovych? It was Yanukovych. And then the West was trying to prop up Poroshenko. Right? Am I getting that right?
That sounds right. I mean, Poroshenko was the guy that they went to and put out all over CNN as soon as Putin's very brutal invasion happened. Wasn't he the one speaking where in the background, one of the soldiers had a wooden AK-47?
Yeah.
I mean, and then we still have taken this story seriously for 4 years.
I don't know. I don't remember if that was Poroshenko. I remember the video of the guy holding the wooden AK. Could have been a training op, who knows? But they didn't pass it off as a training op. The one thing, and going back to the enshrining no NATO membership in the Constitution, Ukrainians don't give a shit about the Constitution. They're not Ukrainians as a population. I don't know enough about them to say that, but they're whatever they call their parliament. They don't give a shit about the Constitution. Yanukovych was ousted with an unconstitutional vote to impeach and remove him, and then he was, they tried to assassinate him, and he was smart enough. He caught the assassination and fled to Russia. And then while he was in Russia, after almost being assassinated, they removed him without the votes in whatever they call their parliament. So they don't give a shit about it. And of course, now Zelensky saying we can't give up the land. It's in our constitution. Well, you're also not supposed to be president right now. We can't hold elections during martial law. Okay, whatever.
Did you, Brian, ever train with wooden rifles?
Wooden, no, but we did train with plastic rifles in boot camp. But it was a very, very limited scope, because in boot camp we had not yet shot rifles, and so we did a couple training revolutions where we had to crawl under barbed wire. One of them had a K-bar attached to it, like a bayonet attached to it, and that was like a stabbing rifle, but we didn't use a real rifle for it. It was a fake one. But other than that, no, we didn't use any we actually, Chris, would use our hands like this more than fake weapons, and only because we didn't want to go to the armory and draw out rifles just to do room clearing and stuff. So we would do notional rifles.
That's kind of cool.
All right. So again, I think the biggest one right here is going to be this one. That's going to be the biggest opposition from Russia. So we'll see. Number 12, a powerful global package of measures to rebuild Ukraine. The creation of a Ukraine development fund to invest in fast-growing industries, including technology, data centers, and AI. The United States will cooperate with Ukraine to jointly rebuild, develop, modernize, and operate Ukraine's gas infrastructure. I thought this one was just a slap in the face to the Bidens. All his work with Burisma, and Trump's just like, hey, look, I'm just going to take over their energy infrastructure. So screw you, Burisma.
And you pair that with the Russian influence and the Russian control over Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, etc.
Yeah.
That Ukraine has its borders. That's what it's going to be left with, and the people there can reform their own government. But it's still the U.S. and Russia controlling the resources of the country.
Yep. Joint efforts to rehabilitate war-affected areas, infrastructure development, extraction of mineral and natural resources. The World Bank will develop a special financing package to accelerate these efforts. That one should go away. That's got to go away, guys. Just ask Malay in Argentina. Just ask, that's just kind of how they take over the country at that point. Put them in debt. Confessions of an Economic Hitman. If you haven't read that, read it. Russia will be, number 13, Russia will be reintegrated into the global economy. Lifting sanctions will be discussed and agreed upon in stages, case by case. The United States will enter into a long-term economic cooperation agreement for mutual development in the areas of energy, natural resources, infrastructure, AI, data centers, rare earth metal extraction projects in the Arctic, and other mutually beneficial corporate opportunities. This is my favorite part of the whole thing right here. This is if you need a further proof of Russia's not the enemy, I don't know if it piggybacks exactly off sovereign alliance theories, but it's pretty damn close. It's I guess it does. They always Burning Bright and everybody always says the sovereign alliance doesn't mean like we're going to war with these people, but opening up trade like this is right up that alley. And beneficial to the whole world as a whole. Russia will be invited to rejoin the G8. And then
Frozen can't wait.
President Trump's going to the G2.
Yeah. It's also silly, man. It's so silly.
The ultimate troll. I love that. Russia will be invited to rejoin the G8. Frozen funds, number 14. Frozen funds will be used as follows. $100 billion in frozen Russian assets will be invested in U.S. efforts led to rebuild and invest in Ukraine. Let's see how the Russians deal with that one.
Well, I mean, if they're agreeing to it and they're saying, fine, you already have our money, well, use it to do the thing that we would have had to do. That's not so bad.
Yeah, but then it comes to this. U.S. will receive 50% of the profits from this venture. Europe will add, and I love this part right here, Europe will add $100 billion to increase the amount of the investment available for Ukraine's reconstruction. Frozen European funds will be unfrozen. So it's almost like the United States at this point, President Trump with this plan is playing the mediator, not just between Ukraine and Russia, but between the EU and Russia. And saying, Russia, your assets are going to be used to do this. And hey, EU, don't be laughing at the Russians. We're doing the same shit to you, motherfuckers. Your $100 billion is going into this as well. So don't think you got off without a pee-pee slap.
It'll be interesting also to see where this ultimately ends up, because you would expect, just seeing the reaction to it from the regime side, from the European side, etc., they're not happy with this. This isn't good enough. They want something else. And there's a lot of pressure to get a deal done. If they hold out trying to get more, is it possible that what they've been offered will be scaled back? And I wonder if these points are in there to coerce the cooperation of globalists and I guess you can call them Atlanticists and Europeans and the rest of it. If these don't succeed in coercing their compromise to this deal, maybe they get taken out and the thing just moves on without them.
Yeah. Number 14, a joint American-Russian working group on security issues will be established to ensure compliance with all provisions of this agreement. Number 16, Russia will enshrine in law its policy of non-aggression towards Europe and Ukraine. That's fascinating. That's almost like making Netanyahu announce that Iran's nuclear capabilities are no longer viable by telling, well, I mean, Russia, they're essentially telling Russia, you have to put out this law of non-aggression towards Europe and Ukraine. I would imagine they got to do the same thing, right? You would imagine.
Yeah. And also non-aggression. I mean, that's refusing proactive aggression, right? I mean, it's certainly not, Putin's not going to give up the right for Russia to defend itself. And I think that he would also say Russia's been living under this non-aggression principle for decades. I don't think that they see what's happening in Ukraine as a Russian aggression at all. That's how it's been framed by the global media, but that's not how it is to Russians.
Right.
The global regime was attacking Russian ethnic people in the borderlands of Russia, and they protected those people. That's their story.
100%. And I agree with their story more than.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, anybody that's gone back and in order to understand, I'll say this again, in order to understand this war, you have to watch Ukraine on Fire, Oliver Stone's documentary, and don't end there. Go and watch the Putin interviews that he did with him, 4-part series. It's just some of the best, one of the better documentaries that I've seen. All right. So number 17, the United States and Russia will agree to extend the validity of treaties on the non-proliferation and control of nuclear weapons, including the START treaty, which was due to expire in February. Big move there. Ukraine agrees to be a non-nuclear state. Number 19, this is awesome. This Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, under the supervision of the International Atomic Energy Administration, the electricity produced at the plant will be distributed equally between Russia and Ukraine, 50-50. Love to see it. Number 20, both countries are to implement educational programs in schools and society aimed at promoting and understanding tolerance of different cultures and eliminating racism and prejudice. Who let the DEI number in here?
It sounds like another one of those European provisions to attract them.
Exactly. It says both countries will abolish all discriminatory measures and guarantee the rights of Ukrainian and Russian media and education. Somebody tell them that USAID has been defunded. We don't need the media and education. All Nazi ideology and activities must be rejected and prohibited. Number 21, territories. And this is where I think Zelensky's going to try and fight as tooth and nail to get this out, but he's not going to win because, like you said earlier, Russia literally has all of the leverage in this negotiation, all of it. Number 21, territories. Crimea, Luhansk, and Donetsk will be recognized as de facto Russian, including by the United States. Kherson and Zaporizhia will be frozen along the line of contact, which will mean de facto recognition along the line of contact. Russia will relinquish other agreed territories it controls outside of those 5 regions. Ukrainian forces will withdraw from the part of the Donetsk Oblast that they currently control, considering it a neutral, demilitarized buffer zone. Internationally, it'll be recognized as territory belonging to the Russian Federation. However, Russian forces will not enter the demilitarized zone. Did you want to comment on that?
No, go ahead.
I thought I heard something. Number 22, Russian Federation and Ukraine undertake not to change these arrangements by force. Number 23, Russia will not prevent Ukraine from using the Dnieper River for commercial activities. And agreements will be reached on the free transport of grain across the Black Sea. Number 24, a humanitarian committee will be established to resolve outstanding issues, including prisoner body exchanges, civilian detainees and hostages will be returned, family reunification programs. Number 25 is a big one. Ukraine will hold elections in 100 days. We'll find out if Zelensky is really their guy. And go ahead.
No, I'm just saying we talked about that with the Venezuela thing. What are those elections going to look like? And I'll check this out during the day today. Probably can't do it on air, but going to the crisis group, the international crisis group, they write reports about what the global agenda is in all these various countries, because they are trying to get all of the globalists, the philanthropists, the banks, the energy companies, et cetera, transnational corporations on the same page about what needs to happen in a certain country, so that they will devote their resources and efforts toward making that thing happen. They are going to try to put their election system in Ukraine. The idea that elections are going to be an important part of that country's rebuilding and future, that seems pretty silly right now.
That is something that absolutely obviously concerns me as well. For the last decade, maybe a little bit longer, I'm sure longer, but notably the last decade, we've had people that are in our elections right now. Ryan Macias, right? The elections group, Ryan Macias, was in Ukraine for the State Department doing elections or overseeing elections. Richard Barron, the former Board of Elections chief in Fulton County, was over in Ukraine for the State Department doing elections. We have our NGOs all over this. Now, with Trump cutting the funding to USAID, National Endowment, et cetera, perhaps we got a leg up on this. And then with an actual team of election denialists working within his inner circles, hopefully, if they do go through with this plan and they do conduct the elections over there, President Trump is not, taking the advice of these NGOs like the elections group and like the, these election watchdog groups that go over and run these elections in foreign countries in order to, essentially soft coup them and put in favorable regimes. So I'm with you 100% on that. If there is going to be an election over there, I hope we stay out of it. And I hope we, or if we do get involved, it's mutual with Russia. Like Russia needs to they need to be like independent poll watchers, Democrat and Republican poll watchers. Everywhere the American is watching, a Russian needs to be right next to him. Otherwise, we'll overthrow that country 100 days after the 28-point plan.
Yeah, I mean, it's just permanent color revolution all the time, everywhere. It's just Bolshevism and Trotsky.
Number 26, all parties will receive full amnesty and agree not to make any claims or consider any complaints. Number 27, this agreement will be legally binding. Who's going to enforce that? Its implementation will be monitored and agreed and guaranteed by the Peace Council, headed by President Donald J. Trump. Sanctions will be imposed for violations. And number 28, once all parties agree, the ceasefire will take place immediately as both sides retreat to the agreed points, which they're probably already at. One thing I found interesting. Do you want to comment on anything broadly about that?
Go ahead.
One thing I found interesting. I was scrolling around on Karel Dimitriev's X, whatever, and he says here, this was this morning at 3:12 a.m. He says, key point from a senior U.S. official per the Wall Street Journal on the version of Trump's peace plan that Ukraine published. And originally, I'd said this is according to the Wall Street Journal, grain of salt. A senior U.S. official said that Ukraine significantly changed one of the 28 points in the version that appeared online. In an apparent move to expose alleged corruption, the draft had called for an audit of all international aid that Ukraine had received. The language was changed to say all parties will receive full amnesty for their actions during the war.
Wow, that's very interesting.
That is extremely interesting. Because like I said, when we were going through this, I immediately thought the line in the sand for Russia is Ukraine joining the EU. That's going to be the hardest obstacle for them to get over with Russia. And then giving up Crimea, Luhansk, and Donetsk is going to be the hardest obstacle for Ukraine, because Zelensky has said, that's my line in the sand, right? Obama's red line in the sand, Crimea, and then Obama did nothing there because he couldn't do anything. But that's interesting that Zelensky's, or whoever made this revision, their line in the sand was auditing, because you don't want the corruption, the laundering, the billions of dollars that we gave them and where it actually went to come out. I thought that was fascinating.
I'm with you, buddy.
And then I like this article right here, because when I was reading this article this morning, immediately good cop, bad cop jumped into my head. You'll see what I mean in a second. Trump's Ukraine envoy, Keith Kellogg, to leave post in January, source says. Now, what they don't tell you is that it's kind of like the same thing as Elon when he left Doge. They're like, Elon's leaving Doge. And it's like, yeah, that's been the plan all along. He could only be there for 128 days or whatever the case was. Same thing here with General Kellogg. It says Donald Trump's special envoy to Ukraine, Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, has told associates that he plans to leave the administration in January, the loss of a key advocate for Ukraine in the Trump administration. Isn't it fascinating how President Trump surrounds himself with a bunch of 3-star generals? No 4 stars, just a bunch of 3 stars. Although Raising Cane's a 4-star now, because he gets automatically promoted to be the Joint Chief. But everybody, General Flynn, General Quast, General Kellogg, Raising Cane was a 3-star. All these generals are 3 stars. It's very interesting.
That is interesting.
Envoys, in theory, must be confirmed by the Senate to stay in their positions past 360 days. And Kellogg was named in January, so he's leaving in January. Last time I checked, that's 360 days, give or take. January would be the natural departure point. It does acknowledge that. The retired lieutenant general was widely viewed as a sympathetic ear in an administration that has at times leaned towards Moscow on the origins of the war in Ukraine. Now we start getting into the good cop, bad cop. The framework, meaning the 28-point proposal, was spearheaded by U.S. Special Envoy for Peace Mission Steve Witkoff, and does not appear that Lieutenant General Kellogg had a role in its drafting. General Kellogg has more forcefully denounced Russian attacks on Ukrainian civilian infrastructure than other Trump administration officials. He at times clashed with Mr. Witkoff, who has reported some of Putin's talking points and advocated a lopsided territorial swap. Spelled swap wrong too. I just thought that was interesting, pointing out the Witkoff, Kellogg, good cop, bad cop. I don't think for a second Kellogg was ever more sympathetic to Ukraine. I think that was his plan all along, was, to butter up Ukraine. Ukraine never had had leverage in these negotiations, but at the same time, you needed to make them think that they were significant in these negotiations. If you belittle them and disparage them, then, nothing comes as a result of that. But anything else you want to?
No, I mean, that's one of those things. I'm just the status of Kellogg and the ultimate agreement that we get with Ukraine and the rest of it, I think that just remains to be seen. I mean, I would say the same thing. There's these two camps in the administration's geopolitical approach, and they've got the Kellogg camp, which kind of seems more aligned with Marco Rubio and the rest of it. And then there's people like Rick Grinnell, for instance. We have kind of the old GOP establishment powers in the way that the world operates from that perspective, and then kind of this newer America First Monroe Doctrine kind of perspective. We'll see ultimately how that shakes out.
I mean, if there's one thing we've seen over the last month, and again, Badlands broadly has been out in front of this the whole time. The realignment is becoming crystal clear. When you see the plan with Israel and Gaza, where Netanyahu and Erdogan get the different treatments coming to the White House, especially compared with MBS this week when he came over to the White House, and the potential of Saudis joining the Abraham Accords, a two-state solution for Palestine, and all the things that the establishment, Republicans and Democrats alike in this country, have pushed back on, the Judeo-Christian values, right, that they keep trying to ingrain in our head. I blew somebody's mind the other day when I said, that's a construct of 1930, right? Like that was never even a thing until the well, it was a thing, but it was never forced upon Americans until the 1930s. They're like, oh no, that goes all the way back to, no, it doesn't,
Yeah, Judeo-Christian is an oxymoron.
It is an oxymoron. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I don't need to go on further with that. That's a different conversation, but yeah, I mean, it's just so silly.
Well, and then
you in these tracks where we repeat the same things over and over again, just because we've heard them so many times, we think they're real.
Yeah, and you're seeing the same thing. The Israeli, as the Israel-Gaza conflict comes to an end, that did not end up the way that the establishment wanted it to end up. With Israel, having full whatever. You're seeing the same thing now with Ukraine and Russia as this deal negotiates and starts winding down. Hopefully, I think, they're saying that they could have this proposal signed by Thanksgiving, which is next week. So that would be a big deal. But this is going to be a huge loss for, the Ukrainian flag simps, the retards on X who have the Ukrainian flag still in their thing. And, Ukraine has a right to defend themselves, all that bullshit. None of it's working out the way they wanted it to. And they're all going to sit here and still say that, Trump is a simp for Putin, and Trump is a simp, or Zelensky and a simp for Netanyahu. I don't see it. That's what MAGA's saying. They're all saying that Trump's a Putin simp and and still a Netanyahu simp. But I just love the way this is shaping out, because, the people that we've been working with, that I've been working with here at Badlands, have been spot on in this. Gordon, BBU, just spot on with all this stuff. And it's fascinating to see it all come into fruition now.
Indeed.
All right, let's jump back into the U.S. Got a couple stories here. This one's absolutely downright hilarious. We've got a new MAGA Jussie Smollett from the DOJ Justice Department, employee, a federal official. Let's just call him Jeff Van Drew. Charged with conspiracy of falsely reporting violent attack and giving false statement to law enforcement. I'm gonna tell the TLDR of this. This woman went out there, cut like Trump whore into her stomach with a scalpel, like paid somebody to do this, slashed up her entire body, wrote Jeff Van Drew is a racist, or Van Drew is a racist on her back, and then zip tied herself with a co-conspirator, left herself in the woods, and then called the police and said that 3 men did it because of her political ideology or whatever the case might be. All this shit. And then it turns out all to be fake. And this is the woman here. And this is apparently the cuts. That looks like marker to me, by the way. Like I'm looking at that. Let me open that. That looks like marker, man.
That's supposed to be a cut?
That's supposed to be cut into her.
Yeah, that on the right, that clearly looks like marker.
This is cut. This is cuts.
Sure. Yeah.
But that looks like marker, which really kills my joke, because I was going to say with stuff like that, you could get full body tattoos and at least be an OnlyFans contributor or something like that. Because I mean, she's not a bad looking woman. Why would you do that? Somebody explain that to me.
Yeah, I mean, I would keep this entire story at many, many arm's length.
Well, I would normally too if it wasn't for the Justice Department putting the charges out there.
I wish that I could say I cared about that. But I don't. The Justice Department shouldn't exist. And the idea that something becomes trustworthy because the DOJ said it, I can't get on board with that.
Fair enough. You know, the Jussie Smollett story in and of itself was just absolutely retarded. Everybody knew right away that was just a dumb story. This one's even worse, though. Let's assume that it's actually, you know, true. And she went and paid $500 for somebody to carve her up. Beautiful woman, carving her face, gouges in her face. Like, how do you explain that in future relationships and not have the guy just be like, okay, you're a whole nother level of psycho. I'm out of here. I don't know, man. We got an interesting update on Charlie Kirk here from 2 News out in Utah. They went to try and do FOIA requests for the footage of Tyler Robinson being admitted into prison and got an interesting response. It says 2 News filed a public records request with the Washington County Sheriff's Office for video showing Tyler Robinson entering the Washington County jail/holding area and for video of Robinson in a holding room, to which the Sheriff's Office responded, quote, "We do not have any records responsive to this portion of the request as Tyler Robinson did not go to or enter the jail area," wrote a records officer. Holding room video was denied as part of that investigation. That's weird because I've done a lot of FOIA requests, and when you don't have responsive records, they never explain it like this, that he did not go to or enter the jail area. So this person is just, this records officer is just somebody most likely, that's sitting there reading these requests. And then they have, you know, access to the database. They type in the keywords that you asked them for. If there's records, they give them to you. If there's no records, they don't give them to you.
They don't explain another alternative. Yeah.
Right. They don't explain to you these records don't exist. Now, small towns, small, you know, whatever. Sometimes they'll reach out and be like, hey, you're going to want to go to this department for this, or you need to clarify by asking this, you know, but that's kind of strange that they,
that is strange.
that they gave an explanation there. It says a few weeks later, they requested, quote, surveillance video showing Tyler Robinson walking into the Washington County Sheriff's Office. And they got another strange response, quote, "Our office does not have any applicable records responsive to this request as the surveillance footage is no longer available after the 30-day retention period." Okay, who believes that?
Well, I don't even believe that Tyler Robinson exists. So all of this seems silly to me.
I love how, like, when I have something that's a little bit off the wall, Chris just one-ups me.
I'm not trying to. I'm just saying
I know.
The idea that Tyler Robinson and Thomas Matthew Crooks are real people at this point is like, come on.
I'm with you. Foundational first principles. I'm with you on that. I definitely 1000% don't believe that he killed Charlie Kirk.
Sure. Right.
But
So at best, these are patsies. And what we're seeing with these releases about Thomas Matthew Crooks is not that he had this or that political leaning or spent time on websites. It's that these are characters created over time by the intelligence and law enforcement communities where they leave these trails online or whatever, or create them after the fact. But these are constructs. It's ridiculous to interact with this like these are real people who did real crimes.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. When asked if the video was shared with any law enforcement or legal agency, the department responded, quote, "Is my understanding it was never sent out to any agency." Again, these are just weird responses. Also, you're not sending, like, we have Jack Ruby shooting Oswald on film in 1960. What was it? 1964, 3? I think it was still in 3. When Jack Ruby shot Oswald.
Yes.
Yeah, well, he was killed November 22nd, 1963. So we got an anniversary coming up. That's my birthday's on the 22nd, so I never forget that day. 20 years later, I was born in 83. He was shot in 63. So I forgot where I was going with. Oh, so we have that footage. You know, we had that footage in 1963, but we don't have footage in 2025 when It's far more widespread and can be backed up to the cloud easily. Come on. Rudy Bautista, a criminal defense attorney for 26 years in Utah, said, quote, "For the state of Utah, we could certainly hope that this video is available. If in fact it has been destroyed and not preserved, it is very concerning. And if it has, then it's very concerning that they're telling you they don't have it." Bautista said the video evidence of Robinson turning himself in would be, quote, "crucial for the defense work of mitigation." So again, just another weird moment in the Charlie Kirk saga, which I have not been following closely. I can't get behind it. I've got friends in this space that are like trying to egg me on to get into the Charlie Kirk conspiracy and the Candace Owens and all this other shit. And I'm like, go ahead.
What part of the conspiracy though? I mean, the whole thing is a story. It's a fictional story. And Candace Owens is now claiming that she had a conversation with Andrew Colvett where he told her it was supposed to be her. What the hell does that mean? This whole thing has been ridiculous since the first moment. And, you know, we have these, it's like an emotional onslaught to get people to believe that something has happened that they must care about and think this thing or that thing about. And you can talk about January 6th. You could talk about the election. You could talk about COVID. You could talk about Ukraine. You could talk about the paragliding go-kart incident. All of these things have this moment of inception, right? Where the story begins. And we have to attach to that, even though all of those moments are preposterous. They're ridiculous things that we are shown on mass media with a coordinated messaging campaign attached to them at the moment of their release, and we still accept it. And we can be led around by the nose by that story for years. And we have proven that we can do that, even though none of it is ever proven or provable.
Again, go ahead.
I said, or falsifiable, which makes it even more difficult.
I subscribe 100% to, like, I haven't paid attention to anything outside of the actual quote unquote crime itself, the assassination itself. And that's where I've drawn, for the most part, I've drawn my line. I dabbled in it a little bit when it first was coming out. I do like, Ash's take on this, and I was kind of flattered by it. And she said, what Candace is doing for Charlie, they were friends, right? That was her good friend. And well, Ash says, if that had happened to me, or I'm sure she would extend the same to you or anybody else here at Badlands, she would move heaven and earth to figure out every detail about it. And that is why, I think there is maybe a little bit of legitimacy to what Candace is attempting to do here, but that's not my concern. Like, I'm not going down those rabbit holes. She's not giving any transparency in what she's saying other than putting up screenshots every once in a while and that kind of stuff. And I'm not disparaging her. I'm not. I just don't get involved because I don't want to. But I can look at the events that we saw on camera, allegedly, and tell you that the narrative that's being deployed on this is absolute bullshit. Absolute bullshit. That was not a 30-06. It was not Tyler Robinson on that rooftop 2 seconds later, running across the roof halfway already, disassembling the gun to get down from the roof and then reassembling it so he could put it in the woods where cops could find it. Get the fuck out of here. It's all bullshit.
How many parts of the story need to fall apart before you take a step back from believing in the reality of any part of it? And I would suggest very few, and it should be zero. Like, just don't believe anything from these sources until they prove it. And the truth is they can never prove it. They only ever move on.
But what's the op, though? That's the only thing I don't understand. What's the end game of that op?
Well, I mean, I could give you proposals, but then to shoot down those proposals, like to be able to falsify or to call into question the official story as it exists, doesn't require me to replace that with another story that will then be satisfactory or more believable or anything like that. I don't know. We are operating at a level of total opacity. We cannot see what the people controlling these stories are doing or what they're intending to do. We can see the results and how people are discussing them and what's being learned from them, how people are reacting to them, and then understanding that we are being propagandized for a purpose. When we see these purposes arise in the world, we can then make some inference that the goal was to reach a certain conclusion that they either succeed in reaching or fail in reaching. And I would say, for instance, the paragliding go-kart incident was to encourage everybody in the quote unquote West to be on board with Israel waging a military operation against whoever they needed to for however long in order to seek revenge on this grave crime that's been committed against them, right? So then we can understand everything from that perspective. This is clearly the intent. These are the actions that suggest that intent is accurate. How does the world then react? And so, I mean, if they're all info ops, they are info ops for a reason. And the reason is often discernible. We don't need any of the details of the info op to be true or false to understand where it's going and what it's attempting to do.
I agree with you. The October 7th, not only was it to, put the West back in that camp, but it also was to subvert Saudis joining the Abraham Accords, where they had the stipulation that Palestine has to have a two-state solution. That was imminent at that point. Ghost predicted that, by the way. The October 7th all but predicted it. And again, there's no way. There was a lot of great minds that were saying there's no way this could have happened, and then some of them cucked to it, unfortunately. But then you look at the Charlie Kirk thing and some of the things that are coming out about his pushback against Israel, his revelations questioning October 7th, whether or not that's true or not. That would be motive to take somebody that is that influential out of that position. 1930, the introduction of the term Judeo-Christian in mainstream America was to rally American Christians behind the Jews in World War II. Now, I'm not saying one way or the other whether or not that was justified, but that's what the op was. Introducing, as we said, an oxymoron, Judeo-Christian, two polar opposites. One believes in Jesus Christ as the Messiah, the other does not. Rejects that outright. You cannot put those two things together. But that was an op to get the mindset of the people behind, the Allied forces in World War II. The USS Liberty. Yeah, it goes down and down and down. And
sure, yeah. The Israel stuff with Charlie Kirk is a little bit unbelievable. I don't think Charlie Kirk's comments were significantly anti-Israel to warrant anything like that. I don't actually believe that his influence was as great as people say it was. And his comments about October 7th still confirm the truth of October 7th. So the idea that Netanyahu allowed it to happen, or I think that was the angle he took on it. You can correct me if I'm wrong about that. But that's not actually disputing what the official story was. It's just a different version of the official story as part of an anti-Netanyahu op that was being run there. Israel's been under color revolution for years now. And Netanyahu is and I know people hate to hear it, but he is the Trump character in Israel right now, being attacked from the kind of leftist progressive side. I mean, they're all leftists, but the neocon warmonger side is attacking him because he's not doing enough, and they want to make him responsible for October 7th. And then on the other side, they're trying to, rearrange the court structure there, do the street protests and the rest of it to delegitimize Netanyahu as the leader. Both sides trying to get him out. Same way they are with Putin in Russia, same way they are with Xi in China, same way they are with Trump here. It's just the program.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think that, I broadly do not like Netanyahu at all, but I think that Trump knows that that's the person that he can leverage the most right now, and he's going to use that. So, yep. All right, last story before we get out of here, and just real quick, I told Chris I saw this right before we went live from The Guardian. Fugees rapper Pras sentenced to 14 years in prison over illegal donations to the Obama campaign. The Grammy-winning rapper Pras, he did that song Ghetto Superstar with Maya back in the day. That was my jam, bro. Love that song. Had no idea who Pras was, but I love that song. Dolly Parton remake. Pras of the Fugees has been sentenced to 14 years in prison for involvement in a $1 billion Malaysia scam that funneled money into U.S. politics. He was convicted of money laundering and campaign finance violations in 2023 in a global foreign influence scandal that led by the Malaysian financier Loh Taek Joe. Ho, I don't know how you say that. In April 2023, he was convicted on 10 counts of conspiracy and acting as an unregistered agent of a foreign government. The trial included testimony from the actor Leonardo DiCaprio and former Attorney General Jeff Sessions. And that's as far as I got in the article. I vaguely remember that story, and it was a shit show. But hey, foreign agent, that's a FARA violation, 14 years. It's going to be interesting.
Just wait to see how it all unravels.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of foreign agent registration violations, I think, in the coming days.
You stick a celebrity out there so that everybody hears about it and talks about it and thinks about it. And it kind of, again, you know, we talked about at the beginning of the show with the video about military disobeying unlawful orders, or, you know, failing to carry out unlawful orders. But the virality of the story means that everybody talks about it, which means that everybody understands what parts of the conversation are important, and all that stuff's good. I'm all for that.
Yep. Throw Leo DiCaprio's name in there, you know, sure. and you got it. All right. Rumble Rants here. Aussie Mix 73 says the very first thing I do when I turn on any Badlands show is hit the thumbs up. Do it. Upwards. Yeah. Do it. Yes. Do it. Hit that thumbs up, folks. S. Busen. Thank you, Brian and Chris. You guys are the best. Thank you.
Thanks.
Lee Walden. I recall a movie with Denzel Washington, The Fallen Tobic. The devil passes from person to person, does terrible things, then jumps to the next. Most people have no memory of Dirty Deed. Highly recommend. The Fallen Tobic. I've never heard of that movie. I'll have to check it out. And it's got Denzel. I love Denzel. Tam J 1116. I wish I would have been 107 days for elections. That would have been an epic troll. Did you see the Kamala 3D chess thing?
No, I want to say no. I don't think so.
She was on a podcast and said, because she's releasing a book, and she was saying that her opponents are trying to get her, but she's playing 3D chess against them, and it's like that's chess. It's just chess. Well, I guess there's 2D chess.
It's not digital chess,
right? If you're playing on a computer, it's 2D chess, I guess. But like, if you're 0D. But no, the funniest part is we're watching it, and her book is in the background, and her book is named 107 Days. Alpha picked that up. DEFCON 0Q. Cam Cooksey, are federal judges allowed to use fake and gay as the reason for their dissenting opinions, asking for at least 5? Great show. Have a great day, Can and Chris.
It would be good.
Cam Cooksey, this bitch stole Chris's tagline. September 24, I believe this was released. Oh, boy.
I think it's just Candace Owens saying fake and gay, but that is not my tagline.
Is it really?
With the current, like the election, like what do you think what's going on right now?
You know, it's funny because I just said this on my show today, but I'm just like, I don't know if I'm the only person that is just so bored with politics. Like there's something about it that now just feels like we're watching the same skit every year. And so I said, I'm like, everything's just fake and gay, you know, like it's just nothing's legit anymore.
Holy shit. She should work for Badlands.
Yeah. The fake and gay thing is definitely not mine, but that thought is that she just expressed.
Oh my, that is the most Badlands take I think I've ever heard. I mean, we've got a couple that aren't fully there yet here, but man,
Rookie Irish says the Denzel movie is called Fallen.
Hold on, I'm trying to see when did this podcast occur?
That one, I guess, up before the election.
Candace Owens calls politics fake and gay. September 4th, 2024. So still not ahead of us.
Well, no.
Oh, Cam put September 2024 in the thing. Okay. Bobu Fufu. I can never say that name. Bob Bufu. Because. Thank you. Because. All right, Chris, what do you got coming up, brother?
I'll be on DPH tomorrow evening, and I would encourage everybody to check out the latest Substack. Elections are fake. It's going to go free to everyone at some point next week. Right now, it is for paid subscribers.
Lee Walden last minute said $2 rant said, look up general officers now in World War II. Yeah, we've got you add a 0 to the number we had back then. And yeah. Brian, you know who said it, bro? Who said what? I know who said what.
I think they're talking about the fake and gay thing. Fake and gay has been around for a really long time. And as far as I know, it just is meme culture talking about how space is fake and gay.
Oh.
And then it just got layered out.
Everything's fake and gay.
Yeah. I don't know why people ascribe that to me. I don't even say that. I call things fake. I call things gay. I call things retarded. But I don't say that's fake and gay.
All right, guys. Tune in tonight. We've got Why We Vote coming up at 7:30 p.m. Ash and I will be on that show. And we've got Ash and I are actually recording part 3 of the Tina series. Oh, update on that. They put her in the hole. It's being reported. I have not confirmed it independently that she's been put in the hole because she filed a complaint against a teacher in the prison, I guess. And that's just heinous, and we got to get her out. So, I mean, we're doing everything we can, guys. I know everybody's concerned about that as we are. And we're going to be recording part 3 of our series this afternoon. And I think that's going to premiere on Tuesday. So be sure to check that out on my channel, on Alpha's channel, and on Ash's channel. And then tomorrow morning, I'll be doing my weekend review. So if you guys want to check that out. And then I think Christy and I are going to do a date night tomorrow night for my birthday. That's kind of what I want for my birthday. So,
and a happy birthday to you, my friend.
And by date night, I mean we do a live stream where we make fun of each other and
yes,
drink wine and smoke cannabis on air. So it's a good time.
Wow.
All right, guys. Take care. Have a great weekend. Chris, thanks as always, brother.
Thank you.
Before skincare went synthetic, people used something simple, something real. Tallow. Grass-fed and finished beef tallow is packed with vitamins A, D, E, and K. Nutrients your skin actually knows what to do with. It locks in moisture, restores elasticity, and defends against winter dryness. No water, no preservatives, and no BS. Unlike plant oils or chemical creams, tallow mimics your skin's own structure. Elbows, hands, knees, post-shave, anywhere your skin's crying for real moisture. Perfect for gifting or keeping your own skin soft when the cold hits. Visit softdisclosure.com and use promo code Badlands for 15% off. Ancient Care, modern truth.
Soft disclosure.